Not getting any answers. But I do see a few people in the room. So we're just going to start here. And I'm going to stop this screen share and say good morning to you. This is Tim Patterson, Trade Show Guy. And it is time for our Monday morning coffee. And there it is. This is, by the way, the radio station that I volunteer at, donate time to. KMUZ. That's my coffee cup this morning. It's a community radio station. I spent 25 years doing commercial radio, which was a lot of fun. Great career. But at the age of, 44, 45, I switched careers to what I'm doing now, which is being trade show guy. Although it took a while to figure out that's what I was doing. And so here we are on MLK Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And, it made me reflect a little bit back on the 60s because being a kid born in the 50s, the 60s were quite an upheaval. And I saw it from a distance because I was just a kid, We'd see things in Life magazine, for instance. And when JFK got shot, that's how we saw it. We didn't have a TV in our house. And so I was fascinated by it, saddened, didn't understand what was going on because I was 8 years old, and I would look through the Life magazine over and over again, all the picture spreads they had of what happened that day in Dallas. And then, 5 years later, it was his brother, Bobby, getting shot. And then shortly it was Martin Luther King Jr. getting shot. It was just, didn't understand what was going on. Extreme cultural upheaval politically, musically, certainly. I was loving the music, being a big Beatles fan and British Invasion fan and all that stuff. If someone were to ask me at the age of 10, what would you want to do for your life? My answer would have been, I want to be a Beatle. So I didn't become a Beatle. I played drums a lot, played guitar a lot, and still play music, but that's it. So let's get right into it. I always wanted to be go to, I remember reading about Haight-Ashbury, but I was like 13 or 14, and that was the place to go. But, I was pretty young for that. So, and my parents would have let me go. So I thought a couple things today. I've got a tickle in my throat. I'm going to cough here in a second. I just know that's going to happen. And let's see here. I'm going to try something else because I want to make sure that we're getting through here. If you just give me one moment, please. Go down to here and see if that works. All right. I'm just trying to confirm that we're actually getting through to the people that we're hoping to get through. Anyway. So I'm going to talk about some of the business tools that I use here at Trade Show Guy Exhibits. That one works. Okay. And I use a lot of different tools. I've come and gone on tools. We're talking digital tools. We're talking physical tools, things that help the business run. For instance, the blog. I have had a blog for this January. It's 8 years, tradeshowguyblog.com. And I started it using WordPress, and it's still a WordPress platform. You can put themes in there, plugins, easy. Now, I will tell you that my first experience with doing websites came in the mid-90s when I learned HTML coding, and I thought, oh, this is cool. You can put the tags in there and put pictures in there and all that sort of thing, whatever, and make columns, and I thought, this is great. And then after doing that for a while, it's just such a tedious way to do a website, I realized, I don't want to do this, and then I came across WordPress, and so that's what the blog is built on. It's great for blogging. It takes you just a few minutes once you got your blog post written to just insert that and get it online. Very easy to put pictures in, audio, video. The WordPress community is great support. Now, some of the negative things about WordPress, to my mind, are that there's a lot of vulnerabilities in that. And I have had issues with malware. I've had websites go down because of malware. And sometimes it takes a little work and time and effort and money to get those websites back up. But it's what your business is built on. So you got to take care of that. I think all the websites I use are built on a WordPress platform, whether it's the business site at TradeshowGuyExhibits.com or some of the landing page sites I use, TradeshowSuccessBook.com, TradeshowGuyWebinars.com, TradeshowExhibitBuyersKit.com. Those are all built on a WordPress platform. I want to put one more tool down here that I actually forgot to put on my list, which is very important. All right, that one. So let's talk about websites here a little bit. One of the things I have started using a year ago is called lead pages. And Lead Pages is a email and name capture program, and they build these pages and templates that you can use, and you can link it up with email programs and all that sort of stuff. Lead Pages, I've used it for a year, and I re-up for a second year because it's so easy to use. It's not free. It's a few $100 a year, but it just does a lot of stuff, and it helps capture visitors' names and emails when they come to the website, if they opt in, and then you can communicate with them, and they go on the newsletter. Speaking of newsletters, I use Aweber. Aweber.com is what all the newsletters go out on, and so you can do auto reply or when someone opts in, for instance, they're going to get like 12 newsletters over about 3 months, along with the regular weekly newsletter that I do. It's all done on Aweber. So Lead Pages and Aweber tie together very, very well. So those are great tools. I've used those. I've used Aweber for probably 7-8 years, and I've used Lead Pages again just over a year, and I really like it. I also use Webinar Jam, which is the platform for the webinar. Now, one of the most popular ones in that space is GoToWebinar, and it works really well. I was looking for something a little more economical, but and Google Hangouts is working with, or I should say, Webinar Jam works with Google Hangouts. They kind of are the same platform. I'm not sure how it's going to work out as time goes on, because I keep seeing messages from Google Hangouts saying they won't support this anymore. They won't support that anymore. So how Webinar Jam is going to deal with that, it'll be interesting to see over time. So right now it's working just fine. What else do I use? Salesforce. I'm a salesman. I'm a project manager. I got to sell projects. So Salesforce is a good tool. It's a bit spendy for what I use it for, but it's been 2 years, and for what I use it for, it does very, very well. Salesforce is a great customer relations management tool. There are other tools out there. I'm actually looking at a couple others. Haven't made up my mind if I'm going to stick with Salesforce for a third year, because this comes up in like April. I have to make up my mind and whether I can pull everything out of Salesforce and move it to another platform if I keep with it. That's kind of the issue when you get to a tool where you're putting a lot of data in there. Can you take that out and move it to something else if that one you started with doesn't make sense economically, or for whatever reason? Maybe it just doesn't do what you need it to do. Can you move it? And that's what I'm still working on. There are other platforms out there that I'm not sure if those are going to work. So Salesforce, again, I use it for a lot of great things, but it's built for more of an enterprise business as opposed to a small shop like us, where there's just 1 or 2 or 3 people that ever access it. So if it's used for a company that has 50 or 75 or 200 salespeople, and you can assign leads and that back and forth, is it like my old friend used to say, having a 747 to drive around the block? I don't know. Some of the ways that I keep appointments and all that sort of stuff and reminders and everything is Google Calendar. It syncs effortlessly with all the various devices I have, which is, my iPhone, my iPad, my computer, everything else there. And so you can put it in one place and it shows up every place. Google Calendar is a great one for that. And now that I've got an iPad mini 2, I'll talk about that in just a second. That I think is, it's great to be able to, when I first discovered this, it's probably been 7 or 8 years ago when I got my first smartphone, I thought, cool, you can put it here and it shows up here and then over there. And it was just like, I'm a kid from the 50s, right? From the 60s, all this new technology was just blowing my mind. And now it's like, if it doesn't do it, why not? Speaking of the iPad, I just heard, I'm taking a sales class, and one of the guys in the sales class mentioned a tool that he uses on his various platforms. It's a Microsoft piece of software called OneNote, and I downloaded it, played with it. So far, I'm really impressed with it. Again, it's one of those things you can install it on any platform, and the documents go back and forth. So if you write it, and the one on iPad, which I really like, you can write on it with the Surface like an iPhone, but this is bigger. And so you can use a stylus or your finger and make notes, and then save that as a document. You can put audio in there, you can put pictures, you can put video, and it all saves it into that document. So you can make audio notes, just like dictation or something like that. And that to me is just really cool. So I'm going to spend more time on Microsoft OneNote. And I will say this, being an Apple guy for several years, only really 5 or 6, coming from the PC world and then switching to Apple. I have to say, Apple, which is a great company, Microsoft had their day back in the software days of the 80s and 90s. They've kind of gone away from that, and they're kind of their best thing they do now is hardware with some of the Microsoft Surface, but their software is coming along too, and I think they're the innovator versus what Apple's innovated on in the last 2 years or so. I think Microsoft has now set the bar higher as far as that goes, and so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But the OneNote, it was a great piece of software. I mentioned Google Calendar. Just started using recently a service called Lead Forensics, and I'm still seeing how that'll play out, because Lead Forensics is you put a code in your website and it tracks the IP of who lands there. You can see what companies come to your website. That way you can follow up with them and see if they're missing something, or if they're interested in your business, that sort of thing. It doesn't get personal information, and that was kind of the thing that made me go, okay, this is an okay thing, because the comment that I've heard is there's not much privacy anymore. You go on a website, people can know you're there, and so why not use that information to create some business? So I'll see how that goes. I use Dropbox and Carbonite to back up. Carbonite is an online backup service, so just automatically backs up everything on your hard drive in case you lose it. It dumps out. You've got a backup. I also use Dropbox to share clients with files, big graphic files, and it also backs up photos. I do use Office 365. Is that the one that it's a subscription service from Microsoft? So I've got WordPress and not WordPress, MS Word, and Excel and PowerPoint and all of that stuff, which I prefer Keynote when it comes to doing presentations, although I don't do too many of them, versus PowerPoint, but that's just my personal preference. But with that, with the Microsoft 365, you get like a terabyte of data storage online, and it automatically backs up photos that I take on my iPhone. So I've got those backed up. And the reason I love having all these backups, and it may be redundant, I have at least 2 to 3 backups of everything, is that every now and then, and it happens frequently, somebody will say, man, my hard drive died and I lost everything. That happened to a guy I know just a week or 2 ago. A 4 terabyte drive died, broke, everything he had on it gone. He didn't have a backup. So I back up. And believe me, I've been through that, where I've lost a hard drive and went, oh man, all those things I had are just gone. So I back up. Carbonite, Dropbox. I do a lot of audio production, and I use recording software called Adobe Audition, which is a great piece of multi-tracking. Put music in, whatever you want for recording audio. And for video production, I use ScreenFlow, which is a Mac-only program to record and produce video. So those are the tools that I use. Now, I've always said don't want to keep this Monday morning coffee more than 10 minutes or so, but I'm already at like 15. So I want to wrap it up here. I got to talking about the tools, kind of fun. So a trade show tip. It comes down to record keeping. I just talked about backing up records and things like that. When it comes to record keeping for your trade show, I wrote a whole chapter on it in the book, Trade Show Success, 14 Steps to Take Your Trade Show Marketing to the Next Level. But the long and short of it is keep records of everything. Take lots of pictures, make notes of everything from logistics to addresses to who was there, how long they worked. The more information you have, the better it'll be the next time around that you can access that information to look back and see what happened, what didn't work. Because frankly, when you do a trade show, it's a fire drill to get everything there. A lot of companies just don't think about it in time as to what needs to be done. And so the last few weeks are kind of a fire drill. And then when it's over, they pack it up and they go back home and they go on to something else. They go back to the office and think, we got another trade show, another year. If you're doing trade shows all the time, you're probably more on top of it. But if it's only a couple of times a year, it's easy to forget about that stuff. So the more records you keep, the better off you have. Now, to wrap it up, I always like to throw in one good thing. This is the one good thing this week. Just got this a couple of weeks ago, called Tools of Titans. It's the new Tim Ferriss book. I like Tim Ferriss a lot. I listen to his podcast on occasion. He's the best-selling author of The 4-Hour Work Week, The 4-Hour Body, The 4-Hour Chef. This is not the 4-Hour Tools of Titans. This is just Tools of Titans. And there's so much in here. It's, how many pages is this thing? 600, almost 700 pages of stuff. What people that are successful use. And he's compiled this over years. And it's everything. I just talked about tools. The Tools of Titans is a fascinating book, and I've just cracked it open, browsed through it. It's not a book you can read start to finish or would want to, but you can jump in here and there and think, okay, I want to get something on how to hack Kickstarter, or the power of thinking sideways. I don't know, just fun stuff in there. So I would recommend this. I think it's anyone who's in business and wants to see what other people are using to be successful in their business. Check out Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans. All right, that will wrap it up for today's Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Monday morning Trade Show Guy, a cup of coffee. Thanks for joining me. I'm just going to look and see if we have any questions in the chat room, and it doesn't look like it, so appreciate it. All right, have a great day, and do this again next week. I will have a guest either next week or the week after, so that'll be fun. I'll let you know if that's the case in our email and social media platform.